3 days after Christmas, Alexander left the hospital with 12 to 16 weeks to live. Not 6 months, not 4, 12 weeks. Spring wouldn't come for him. Back in his penthouse, 42 floors of marble and glass, and nothing that mattered, his phone showed 17 missed calls from Willa. He'd ignored them all. Because what could he say? I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I'm dying. I'm sorry I made your children love me just to leave them. None of it was enough. He listened to his wolves, first angry, then broken. The kids won't stop asking. Oliver drew you a picture. Sophia thinks you're already dead. The last one, 2 a.m. I can't be the one who takes their father away, so call me back, please. He hadn't called. Too much of a coward. Then, his phone rang. Oliver, you left the hospital without telling us. 6 years old, flat voice, hurt. Come tomorrow, but don't lie anymore. We're not babies, we can handle the truth. Click. Alexander sat there, phone in hand, and realized what tomorrow meant. He had to tell his children exactly how he was going to die.
If you're just finding this story now, you need to stop and watch parts 1 and 2 first, because what happens next won't make sense without understanding how we got here. For everyone who's been with this story from the beginning, this is the end. Not the ending you wanted, but the ending that was always coming. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications, because what you're about to watch is a story about truth, time, and what we leave behind when we're gone. Let's finish this.
Alexander arrived at Willa's apartment at exactly 2 p.m. the next day. She opened the door before he could knock. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup. They've been waiting by the door for an hour, she said quietly. I'm sorry, Don't apologize to me, apologize to them. She stepped aside. Oliver and Sophia were sitting on the couch, hands folded in their laps, faces serious. Like they were preparing for something. And they were. Alexander sat in the chair across from them. Willa stood behind the couch, her hands on their shoulders. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Sophia said, Are you still dying? Yes. How long? The doctors say 12 to 16 weeks. What does that mean? Oliver asked. It means I'll probably be gone by spring. Sophia's face crumpled, but she didn't cry. Oliver's expression didn't change. What happens when you die? Sophia asked. My body will stop working. Will it hurt? I don't know. Maybe. The doctors are going to try to make sure it doesn't. And then what? Then I'll be gone. Where will you go? Alexander glanced at Willa. She said nothing. This was his to answer. I don't know, he said honestly. Nobody knows for sure. Will we see you again? Sophia's voice was small now. After? I don't know. That's a stupid answer, Oliver said. I know, but it's the only honest one I have. Oliver stood up, walked to the window, his back to everyone. Why did you come back if you were just going to die? The question again. The one Alexander had been avoiding. Because I was selfish. Because I wanted to know you before I died. Because I couldn't face dying alone without at least trying to be your father. That is selfish, Oliver said, still not turning around. I know. You should have stayed away. It would have been easier. For who?
For us. Oliver spun around, and now he was crying, because now we know you and we love you, and you're leaving anyway. I know. Stop saying I know, Sophia shouted. Stop saying you're sorry and you know. Just fix it. I can't fix it, sweetheart. Why not? Because the tumor in my brain is killing me, and the doctors can't remove it, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. The words hung in the air, brutal and simple. Sophia started crying in earnest now. Oliver wiped his face angrily. Willa's hands tightened on their shoulders. I wish I'd never met you, Oliver said, his voice breaking. I wish you'd stayed gone. Oliver, Willa said softly, it's true. I was fine before. We were fine. And now everything hurts, and it's his fault. He ran to his room and slammed the door. Sophia looked between Alexander and the closed door, torn. Then she slid off the couch and walked over to Alexander. She climbed into his lap and buried her face in his chest. I don't wish I never met you, she whispered. I'm glad you came back, even if it hurts. Alexander wrapped her arms around her, this tiny human who'd just given him absolution he didn't deserve. I'm glad too, he managed. Willa was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. And in the other room, Alexander could hear Oliver sobbing. This was the truth. Not redemption, not forgiveness. Just pain, honestly spoken, in a small apartment, on a gray winter afternoon.
After a while, Oliver emerged from his room. His eyes were red and puffy, but his face was set with determination. I have questions, he said. Okay, Alexander replied. Sophia stayed in his lap. Willa sat down on the arm of the couch. Oliver pulled out a small notebook, the kind they give kids at school, and a pencil. I wrote them down, he said, so I wouldn't forget. Alexander's throat tightened. Go ahead. Number 1. What's going to happen to your body when you die? I'll be cremated, turned into ash. Where will the ash go? I don't know yet. Maybe scattered somewhere? Can we help choose where? Alexander looked at Willa. She nodded slightly. Yes, Alexander said. I'd like that. Oliver made a note in his notebook. Number 2, do you have a will? Yes. What's in it? Oliver, that's not, Willa started. I want to know, Oliver insisted. Alexander took a breath. Most of my money is going into trust funds for you and Sophia. You'll get access when you're 18. We don't want your money, Oliver said flatly. Oliver, Willa said again. We don't. Money doesn't fix anything. He can't buy us a dad. You're right. I can't. But the money isn't about buying anything. It's about making sure you have opportunities. College if you want it. Help starting a business. A house someday. Things I won't be here to help you with. Will it be a lot? Sophia asked quietly. Yes. Enough that you'll never have to worry about anything. Will that make us happy? And there it was. The question that mattered. No, Alexander said honestly. Money doesn't make you happy. I have a lot of money, and I've been miserable most of my life. Then why give it to us? Because even though it can't make you happy, it can give you freedom. Freedom to choose what you want to do with your life. Freedom to help people. Freedom to not worry about basic things like food and shelter. Oliver made another note. Number 3. What do you want us to remember about you? The question hit harder than any of the others. What do you mean? After you're gone, what should we tell people about you? What should we remember? Alexander had no answer. What did he want them to remember? The billionaire who abandoned them? The dying father who came back too late? The man who lied about his illness? I don't know, he admitted. You have to know, Oliver insisted. Because we're going to forget things. Sophia and I, we don't remember stuff from when we were babies. Mama says that's normal. So if you don't tell us what to remember, we might forget the important parts. What do you think is important?
Oliver thought about it. That you came back. That you were scared, but you tried anyway. That you told us the truth when it was hard. And that you loved us, Sophia added. Right? Right, Alexander managed. I love you both, so much. Even though you don't really know us, I know enough. Sophia seemed satisfied with that. Oliver made another note. Number 4. Are you scared? Of dying? Yes. Yes, I'm terrified. What scares you most? Alexander looked at these 2 children, these beautiful, brilliant children he'd helped create and then abandoned. That you'll forget me, he said quietly. That in 10 years, you won't remember what I looked like or sounded like. That I'll just be a name and some money in a bank account. We won't forget, Sophia said immediately. You might. You're 6. You'll grow up and... We won't forget, she repeated, fiercer this time. I promise. You can't promise that. Yes, I can, because I'm going to remember this right now. You sitting here, me in your lap, Oliver asking questions. I'm going to remember your voice and your face and the way you smell like soap. And coffee, Oliver added. You always smell a little like coffee. Alexander laughed despite the tears now streaming down his face. I drink too much coffee. We'll remember that too, Oliver said, making a note. He flipped the page in his notebook. Last question, he said. Number 5. If you could go back and change one thing, would you still leave? The question Alexander had been asking himself for 6 years. Would he? If he could go back to that moment, Willa pregnant, scared, needing him, would he stay? Knowing what he knew now, knowing that staying would mean being there for sleepless nights and first words and scraped knees and school plays. Knowing that staying would mean they'd have a father who loved them for their whole lives instead of a stranger who showed up dying. No, Alexander said. If I could go back, I would stay. I would face my fear. I would be there from the beginning. But you can't go back. No, I can't. So, this is all we get. Yes. Oliver closed his notebook. Okay, he said. Then we'd better not waste it.
After the children went to play in their room, Alexander and Willa sat in the kitchen. She made tea, neither of them drank. They handled that better than I expected, she said finally. Oliver's angry. He has a right to be. I know. Willa stared into her mug. I'm angry too. I know. No, you don't. She looked up, and her eyes were blazing. You have no idea how angry I am. At you, at myself, at the universe. Willa. She looked down at her tea. You left me pregnant and terrified. You made me raise them alone. You made me tell them their father didn't want them. Her voice was shaking. Do you know how many nights Sophia asked why her daddy left? Do you know how many times Oliver asked if it was his fault? I'm sorry. And then you came back, dying, and for 2 weeks I let myself hope that maybe you'd changed, that maybe we could build something, that maybe they'd finally have a father. She was crying now, angry tears. And instead, I get 3 months to watch my children fall in love with you and then lose you. 3 months to prepare them for grief they shouldn't have to face at 6 years old. I know. Stop saying you know. She slammed her mug down, tea sloshing over the edge. You don't know. You get to die and be done with it. I have to stay here and pick up the pieces. I have to watch them grieve. I have to answer their questions when you're gone. I have to be the one who's still here. You're right, Alexander said quietly. Damn right I'm right. They sat in silence. Then Willa said, softer, I loved you. I know. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified, but I was also happy because I thought we'd figure it out together. I thought you loved me enough to stay. I did love you. Not enough. Not in the right way. What does that mean?
I loved you like a drowning person loves a life raft. Desperately, completely, but not healthily. I didn't know how to love without fear, without waiting for the other shoe to drop. So you dropped it yourself. Yes. Willa laughed, bitter and tired. That's the most screwed up thing I've ever heard. I know. You really are dying, aren't you? Yes. It's not some manipulation, some scheme to get back into our lives. No. Show me. What? The medical records, the diagnosis. Show me. Alexander pulled out his phone, opened the folder where he'd saved all the documents, and handed it to her. She scrolled through. MRI images, doctor's notes, prognosis reports. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh God, she whispered. It's real. Yes. You're really dying. Yes. She set down the phone and covered her face with her hands. For a long moment, she just cried. Not angry tears this time. Grief. Pure, unfiltered grief. I don't want you to die, she said finally, her voice muffled by her hands. I don't want to die either. This isn't fair. No. We just got you back. I know. She lowered her hands, looking at him with red, swollen eyes. What are we supposed to do now? I don't know. We have maybe 3 months. Yes. That's not enough time. No. But it's what we have. Yes. Willa reached across the table and took his hand. Then we'd better not waste it, she said, echoing Oliver's words. Alexander squeezed her hand, and for the first time since his diagnosis, he felt something other than fear. Not hope. Hope would be cruel, but something else. Purpose. He had 12 weeks left. 12 weeks to be a father. 12 weeks to leave something behind besides money. 12 weeks to prove that showing up late was better than never showing up at all. It wasn't enough, but it was what he had.
New Year's Eve arrived with unexpected warmth. Willa invited Alexander to stay for dinner. Not a fancy dinner. Tacos, the kind you make at home with the seasoning packets and hard shells that break when you bite them. The twins thought it was hilarious when Alexander's taco fell apart on his first bite, spilling beef and cheese all over his plate. You're doing it wrong, Sophia informed him. Clearly, you have to bite gentle. I'll remember that. While the twins argued about whose taco shell had broken worse, Alexander found himself doing the math. December 31st. If the doctors were right, 12 to 16 weeks, he would die sometime between late March and late April.
He wouldn't see spring fully bloom. He wouldn't see Easter. He wouldn't see the twins' birthday in June. This was his last New Year's Eve, his last chance to watch a year end and pretend like everyone else that the next one held infinite possibility. But for him, the next year held only one certainty, an ending. "Alex," Sophia's voice cut through his thoughts. "You're not eating." He looked down at his untouched taco. "Just thinking," he said. "About what?" "About how strange it is to celebrate a year I won't finish, about how everyone makes resolutions for the future and I don't have one, about how midnight will come and the world will cheer and all be counting down to something else entirely. About how lucky I am to be here," he said instead. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. They played board games after dinner. Alexander was terrible at them. He never played board games as a child, never developed the strategies. Oliver beat him 3 times at checkers. Sophia destroyed him at memory matching. At 9 p.m., Willa said it was time for the twins to get ready for bed. "But it's New Year's Eve," Sophia protested. "And you're 6. Bedtime is bedtime." "But everyone gets to stay up on New Year's Eve," Sophia insisted. "Emma's mom lets her stay up till midnight, and Marcus, and Jake." "Can we please?" Oliver added in a rare moment of siding with her sister. "Just once?" Willa hesitated, looking at Alexander. He shrugged. "It is a special occasion." Willa sighed, the kind of sigh that meant she was already giving in. "Fine, but you're going to bed the second after midnight. Deal?" "Deal!" both twins shouted. They changed into their pajamas anyway, Sophia's covered in stars, Oliver's plain blue, and piled back onto the couch with blankets. Willa made hot chocolate. Alexander sat between the twins, their small bodies pressed against his sides, and tried to memorize the feeling.
At 11:45 p.m., Willa turned on the TV. The countdown coverage was already playing. Crowds in Times Square bundled against the cold, holding signs and cheering, a massive ball of light waiting to drop. Alexander stared at the screen, but his mind was elsewhere. New Year's Eve. For most people, this was a night of hope, resolutions, fresh starts, the promise that next year would be better than the last. But Alexander wouldn't see next year. Not really. He would see January, probably February, maybe March if he was lucky. But he wouldn't see summer, wouldn't see the twins turn 7, wouldn't see another Christmas, another Thanksgiving, another ordinary Tuesday afternoon. This was his last New Year's Eve, and he was spending it exactly where he wanted to be. "Alex," Oliver said quietly while Sophia was distracted by the TV. "Do you have a New Year's resolution?" The question caught Alexander off guard. "What?" "A resolution. Something you want to do better next year. Mama always makes us say ours at dinner, but we forgot." "What's yours?" Alexander asked, deflecting. "To read 50 books. I read 37 this year." "I want to do a cartwheel without falling," Sophia chimed in, apparently not as distracted as Alexander thought. "I almost did one last week, but I landed on my butt." They both looked at him expectantly. "A resolution. Something to do better next year. How do you make a resolution when you won't have next year?" "I want to be present," Alexander said slowly. "That's boring," Sophia said. "It's not," Oliver countered, his voice quiet. "It's actually the hardest one." 6 years old and already understanding something most adults never learned. "You're right, it is," Alexander said. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophia said, "I hope you get to keep your resolution." Alexander pulled her closer. "Me too, sweetheart. For as long as I can." The countdown began on screen. 10, 9, 8, the crowd roared. 7,
6, 5. Sophia bounced on his lap, counting along. 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Confetti exploded across the screen. Fireworks, cheering, strangers kissing strangers. Sophia threw her arms around Alexander's neck. Happy New Year, Alex! Oliver, more reserved, offered a small smile. Happy New Year! Alexander held them both, these two tiny humans he'd only known for 2 weeks, and felt something crack open inside him. Not sadness, something deeper. Gratitude. He was here, right now, in this moment, and for however many moments he had left, he would be present for every single one. Happy New Year, he whispered. My last one. But he didn't say that part out loud.
Willa appeared, her eyes slightly wet. Okay, you two, a deal is a deal. Bed, now. The twins groaned, but obeyed, exhausted despite their protests. Can Alex read us a story? Oliver asked. Willa looked at Alexander. Do you want to? Yes. The twins' room was small. 2 beds, mismatched but cozy. Drawings taped to the walls, stuffed animals everywhere. Oliver and Sophia climbed into their respective beds, pulling covers up to their chins. Alexander sat in the chair between them, holding a book Sophia had selected, something about a dragon who was afraid of flying. He read slowly, his voice rougher than it used to be. The tumor was affecting things. Small things, but noticeable. Halfway through, Sophia interrupted. Alex? Yes? Are you going to be here for our birthday? Their birthday. June 14th. 5 months away. He'd be dead by then. I don't know, sweetheart. Probably not. Right? Probably not. Oliver looked up from his pillow. We already know the answer. You don't have to pretend. Oliver? It's okay, Oliver said quietly. We'd rather know the truth than have you lie to make us feel better. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Will you be here for Valentine's Day? Yes. What about Easter? Maybe. What about next week? Yes. Okay. She settled back into her pillow. Then that's enough. It wasn't enough. But she was trying to make it okay. These children, these impossibly wise children, were trying to make his dying okay. Alexander finished the story. Sophia was already asleep. Oliver was still awake, staring at the ceiling. Oliver? Alexander said quietly. I'm not mad anymore. I thought you should know. Okay? I'm still sad, but not mad. That makes sense. Alexander stood to leave, but Oliver said, Wait. Yes? Can you promise me something? If I can. Promise you won't disappear before you die. Like, I know you're going to die, but promise you won't stop visiting before that, even when you get really sick. Oliver, promise, because I want to remember you, the real you, not just the healthy version. Alexander's eyes burned. I promise, as long as I'm physically able, I'll be here. Okay, that's good enough. Oliver rolled over, facing the wall. Dismissed.
Alexander walked out, closing the door softly behind him. Willa was waiting in the hallway. You heard? He asked. Yes. He's going to remember the bad parts, the decline. I know. That's not what I want for them. It's what they need, Willa said. They need to see that loving someone doesn't stop when it gets hard, that you stay even when it's ugly. That's the lesson. That's a terrible lesson. No, it's the most important one. She walked him to the door. Through the window, they could see distant fireworks still exploding over the city, latecomers celebrating, parties still going strong.
Happy New Year, Willa said softly. Happy New Year. She studied his face. You had this look tonight, during the countdown, like you were saying goodbye to something. He had been. To the last year of his life. To the version of himself that still had time to waste. To the man who thought he'd have decades to fix his mistakes. Just thinking, he said. About what? About how most people make resolutions, plan for the future, assume they'll have one. Willa's expression softened. And you? I'm just trying to be here while I can. She reached out and took his hand, squeezed it once. That's enough. That's more than enough. He wanted to believe her. Outside, another firework exploded, gold and silver raining down over a city full of people who believed next year would be better. Alexander watched it fade. Then he walked out into the first night of the last year of his life.
The first week of January brought an unwelcome visitor. On January 4th, the social worker came. Her name was Patricia, mid-40s, professional, kind but thorough. Alexander wasn't allowed to be there. Willa had insisted. "This is about whether I'm a fit parent," she'd said. "If you're here, it looks like I'm hiding something, or that you're coaching the kids." So, Alexander sat in his penthouse, staring at his phone, waiting for news. The interview took 2 hours. Patricia spoke to Willa first, asking about Alexander's history, his absence, his sudden return. Willa had been honest, brutally honest. "He abandoned us before the twins were born. He came back 3 weeks ago because he's dying. He has a brain tumor, 12 to 16 weeks left." Patricia had asked if Willa felt the children were in danger. From Alex? No, he's not a threat. He's just running out of time. And the man who filed the complaint? Derek? "My ex-husband. He has no legal rights to the children, no biological connection. He was verbally abusive during our marriage, which is why I divorced him and got a restraining order. The order expired, but that doesn't mean he's welcome in our lives." Patricia had made notes. Then she'd spoken to each twin separately. Oliver, according to Willa, had been clinical, almost cold. "Alex is our dad. He was gone for a long time. Now he's back, he's sick, he's going to die. That's sad, but it's not anyone's fault. And Derek is a bad person who used to yell at us and make Mama cry." The social worker had asked if he felt safe. With Alex? Yes. With Derek? No. Sophia had been less composed. She'd cried and asked if they were going to take her away from her mom. The social worker had assured her they weren't. "We just want to make sure everyone is okay. That's all." A week later, the case was officially closed. No evidence of endangerment, no further investigation required. But the damage was done. The twins had been forced to articulate their grief to a stranger, to explain their dying father to someone with a clipboard and a checklist, to defend their mother against accusations from a man who'd terrorize them. Derek had accomplished exactly what he wanted. He'd made their pain official.
When Alexander heard the news, case closed, no action, he didn't feel relief. He felt rage. A cold, focused rage at a man who would use children as weapons. "What happens to Derek?" he asked Willa over the phone. "Nothing. Filing a CPS complaint isn't illegal even if it's frivolous. There has to be something." "There isn't. He's not violating any law. He's just cruel." Alexander sat with that for a moment. "I have lawyers," he said quietly. "Good ones. If Derek comes near you or the kids again—" "He won't. The investigation cleared us. He has nothing left to threaten us with. But if he does—"
Then we'll deal with it. Together. Together. A word Alexander had never expected to hear from her again. I'm sorry that the kids had to go through that. It's not your fault. It is. If I hadn't come back. If you hadn't come back, they'd never have known their father. Derek would have found some other way to make our lives miserable, and I'd be raising them alone, wondering if I'd made a mistake by not trying harder to find you. Silence. Do you regret it? Alexander asked, letting me back in. Willow was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again in 3 months, when I'm picking up the pieces. She hung up, and Alexander sat alone in his penthouse wondering if he'd done the right thing, or if he'd just made everything worse.
In mid-January, Alexander sat down with his lawyer. His will was already in order, but there were other things to finalize. The trusts for the children are established. They'll have access at 18 with yearly disbursements starting at 25. Good. You also mentioned wanting to establish a foundation. Yes, the Second Chances Foundation, for children in foster care. I want it funded generously, with instructions to maintain operations in perpetuity. His lawyer made notes. And the remainder of your estate? Various charities. I have a list. Your penthouse. Sell it. Put the money into the children's trusts. What about personal items, photos, mementos, things you want the children to have? Alexander thought about his penthouse, the expensive furniture, the art, the watch collection. None of it mattered. There's a folder in my desk, top drawer. It has their birth certificates, photos I've collected over the years, a letter I wrote when they were 2. I want them to have that. And I'll write them new letters, one for each of them, to be given at the funeral. What about your company? My COO will take over. The board is already aware. When do you want to announce your illness publicly? I don't. The lawyer looked up. Mr. Dawson, when you pass, there will be questions. The media can speculate all they want. I don't owe them an explanation. What about your employees, your investors? My COO will handle communications. I'm not turning my death into a publicity event. The lawyer nodded, making more notes. One more thing, Alexander said. I want to set up education funds, anonymous, for every child currently in the foster care system in this city. That would be, I don't care what it costs. Do it. Yes, sir. After the meeting, Alexander sat in his car and realized something. He'd just given away nearly everything he owned. And he felt lighter than he had in years. Money had always been his measure of worth, his proof of success, his shield against the world. But it couldn't save him now. And it couldn't buy what he actually wanted. Time. Love. Forgiveness. Those things, he was learning, had to be earned. One day at a time. One moment at a time. With whatever time he had left.
The recital was January 24th. Alexander had promised himself he would be there, had marked it on his calendar, had told Sophia a dozen times that he wouldn't miss it. But on the morning of January 24th, he woke up on the floor of his bathroom with no memory of how he got there. A seizure, his third. He'd called his neurologist, who had insisted he come in immediately. The scans showed what Alexander already knew. The tumor was growing faster. His time was shrinking. I have somewhere I need to be tonight, my daughter's ballet recital, he had told Dr. Patel. Mr. Dawson, you had a seizure this morning. You shouldn't be driving. You shouldn't be anywhere without supervision. If you have another episode in public, I don't care. You should. Because if you collapse at a children's recital, in front of your daughter, in front of all those parents, that's what she'll remember, not the performance, the moment her father fell down and didn't get up. Alexander wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He'd called Willa from the hospital bed, barely able to keep his voice steady. "I can't make it tonight." Silence. "You promised," Willa said finally. "You promised her." "I know. I had a seizure this morning. I'm at the hospital. They won't let me leave." More silence. "It's going to be devastating." "I know. What do you want me to tell her?" "The truth. That I'm sick. That I wanted to be there. That I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't mean anything to a 6-year-old who's looking for her father in the audience." "I know." Willa hung up.
Alexander lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, and hated himself more than he ever had. He'd called Willa back an hour later. "Can you record it, please? Already planning on it. Thank you." She'd sent him the video that night. 12 minutes of shaky smartphone footage. Sophia, in her pink tutu, third from the left, performing the routine she'd practiced 100 times in her living room. Halfway through, Alexander saw her eyes scan the audience, looking for him. Not finding him. Her smile faltered for just a moment. Then she kept dancing. 'Cause that's what you do. You keep going, even when the people who are supposed to be there aren't. He watched the video 17 times. When he finally saw Sophia again, 3 days later, she didn't mention the recital at first, but Oliver did. "She cried after," he said quietly while Sophia was in the other room. "You should have told us you were in the hospital. I didn't want to ruin her day. You ruined it anyway by not being there." 6 years old and already understanding that absence hurts more than hard truths. Later that night, Sophia climbed into Alexander's lap and said, "I knew you wanted to come. I wanted to be there. I know. Mama showed me the texts, and she said you watched the video a bunch of times. 17 times. That's a lot. You were really good." "I know." She leaned her head against his chest. "It's okay that you missed it, as long as you don't miss the next one." But there wouldn't be a next one. Not for him. By the time her spring recital came around, he'd be gone. "I'll try," he said. The same words he'd said before. The same lie. But this time, Sophia didn't look disappointed. She just held him tighter. Like she understood.
By February, the decline was impossible to hide. Alexander's hands trembled constantly. His balance failed without warning. He walked with a cane now, not because he wanted to, but because he'd fallen 3 times in 1 week, and Willa had stopped asking. The headaches were daily, sometimes hourly. His vision blurred at the edges. Words disappeared mid-sentence. Simple words he'd known his entire life would just vanish, leaving him grasping at empty air. The children noticed everything. One afternoon in mid-February, they were at the apartment. Alexander no longer went to the park, the risk of falling too great. He sat on the couch while Oliver read beside him and Sophia practiced a new dance routine. "Alex," Sophia stopped mid-turn, "your hand is shaking." "I know. Does it hurt?" "A little." She walked over and took his trembling hand in both of hers, holding it still. "Is that better?" "Yes," he said, though it wasn't really. "Thank you." Oliver looked up from his book. "You're getting worse." Not a question. "Yes." "How much time do you have left?" "A few weeks. Maybe a month." Sophia's grip on his hand tightened. "That's not very long." "No." "We better make the most of it," Oliver said, echoing what they'd all been saying for months. But this time, the words felt different, because they all knew. The end was coming. Not someday. Soon.
That night, during their bedtime phone call, Sophia asked, "Alex, will you remember us after you die?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know what happens after. But if you do remember, if there is an after, will you think about us?" "Every second." "Promise?" "Promise." "Okay, I'm going to remember you too, forever and ever. You might forget some things. That's okay. I won't forget the important parts." "What are the important parts?" She thought about it. "That you came back, that you loved us, that you tried." Simple, perfect, everything he'd wanted them to know, distilled into 3 sentences by a 6-year-old. "Thank you," Alexander managed, his voice breaking. "For what?" "For giving me a chance, for letting me be your dad, even if it was only for a little while." "You're welcome," Sophia said solemnly. "Good night, Alex." "Good night, sweetheart." He hung up and sat in the dark, clutching the phone, memorizing her voice. Because soon, memories would be all he left behind.
In early March, Alexander woke up and couldn't remember where he was. Not couldn't remember how he got there, couldn't remember where he was. The penthouse, his home for 8 years, completely unfamiliar. It lasted for 45 minutes. 45 minutes of profound disorientation, of panic, of his brain simply refusing to recognize his surroundings. When it cleared, Alexander called Willa. "I need to see them today," he said. "What's wrong?" "I'm running out of time, faster than we thought." She didn't ask for details. "Come over." He took a car service. He couldn't drive anymore. Hadn't been able to for weeks. The driver helped him to Willa's door. She answered, took one look at him, and her face crumpled. "He looked terrible." "I feel worse." "The kids are at school. They'll be home in an hour." "Can I wait?" "Of course." He sat on the couch, the same couch where they'd had Christmas Eve dinner, where Oliver had asked his questions, where Sophia had decided to trust him. Willa made tea. They sat in silence. Finally, she said, "How long?" "Weeks, maybe less." "Oh, God." "I need to say goodbye." "Don't." "Willa. If you say goodbye, it becomes real. If you say goodbye, they'll know it's the end." "They already know." "But they don't know, not really. They still think maybe there's time, maybe a miracle." "There's no miracle coming." "I know that." She was crying now. "But they're 6. Let them believe for just a little longer." "I can't lie to them anymore." "Then don't say goodbye. Say see you later. Say I love you. Say anything but goodbye." When Oliver and Sophia got home from school, they found Alexander on the couch. "You came." Sophia dropped her backpack and climbed into his lap. Oliver was more cautious. "You look sick." "I am sick." "Worse than before?" "Yes." Oliver sat beside him. "Are you dying soon?" "Yes." "How soon?" "I don't know exactly, but soon." Sophia's arms tightened around him. "I don't want you to go," she whispered. "I know. I don't want to go either." "Then don't." "I don't have a choice, sweetheart." They sat there, Alexander and these 2 children, while Willa made dinner in the kitchen and pretended not to cry. After a while, Oliver said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you think you were a good dad?" The question lodged in Alexander's throat. Was he? He'd shown up. He'd told the truth.
He'd spent every day he had left trying to be present. But he'd also left them first. He'd lied about his illness. He'd given them 3 months instead of 6 years. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I tried to be." "I think you were," Oliver said quietly. "Not perfect, but good enough." "Good enough is good," Sophia added. Good enough. After a lifetime of striving for excellence, for perfection, for more, these children were telling him that good enough was okay, that trying mattered, that love, even imperfect love, was still love. "Thank you," Alexander managed. They ate dinner together, pasta again, simple and warm. And when it was time for Alexander to leave, when the car service arrived to take him home, he stood at the door. "I'll see you soon," he said. Not goodbye. Not yet. "Promise?" Sophia asked. "I'll try." This time she didn't look disappointed. She just hugged him as hard as she could, and Oliver shook his hand very seriously, like a little man. And Willa stood in the doorway, crying silently, watching the father of her children prepare to die. They all knew, even the children, that every "see you later" might actually be goodbye, and they were running out of tomorrows.
Alexander died on March 18th. Not in a hospital. Not surrounded by machines. In his penthouse. In his sleep. With a hospice nurse in the next room. Peaceful, they said. Quick, they said. Like that made it better. Willa got the call at 6:47 a.m. She didn't tell the twins right away. She made them breakfast, braided Sophia's hair, helped Oliver pack his backpack. Normal things. Because once she told them, everything would change. After they left for school, she sat on the couch and cried for an hour. Not for herself. For them. For 2 6-year-old children who'd loved a father for 3 months and would now spend the rest of their lives missing him. When they got home from school, she sat them down. "I need to tell you something," she said. They knew immediately. Alex died. Not a question. Yes. This morning. So he's just gone? Yes. Forever? Yes. Sophia nodded. Then she got up, walked to her room, and closed the door. Oliver sat very still. "When's the funeral?" "Next week." "Will there be a lot of people?" "Probably. He was well known." "Will they know who we are?" "I don't know." "I don't want them to." "Okay." Oliver stood up. "I'm going to my room now." "Oliver, I need to be alone." He walked away, leaving Willa sitting by herself in the living room of an apartment that suddenly felt too quiet. The funeral was on March 25th. A clear, cold spring day. The service was private. Just Willa, the twins, a few of Alexander's business associates, and his lawyer. The twins wore matching black outfits. Sophia held a stuffed rabbit. Oliver held his notebook, the one with all the questions. The service was short. No eulogy. Alexander had specifically requested no speeches. Just music and silence and the weight of absence.
Afterward,
The lawyer approached Willa, carrying 2 items. The first was a worn folder, the same folder that had lived in Alexander's dress drawer for 6 years. Inside were the twins' birth certificates, photographs from every year of their lives that Alexander had collected from a distance, and a letter he'd written on their 2nd birthday, a letter he'd never had the courage to send. He wanted them to have this, the lawyer said, when they're ready. The second was an envelope, sealed, with their names written on the front in Alexander's handwriting. "This one is for now," the lawyer said. Willa opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. "Oliver and Sophia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't stay longer. I'm sorry I came back so late. I'm sorry for all the time we lost. But I'm not sorry I came back. These 3 months with you were the best 3 months of my life. You taught me what it means to love someone more than yourself. You taught me that trying matters. You taught me that good enough is good. I'm leaving you money, a lot of money, but that's not what I want you to remember. I want you to remember that I showed up, that I told the truth, that I loved you. I want you to remember that sometimes people make mistakes, and sometimes they try to fix them, and sometimes it's too late, but they try anyway. I want you to remember that you are worth showing up for. I love you. Always. Yours, Father." Willa read it out loud, her voice breaking. Sophia cried. Oliver didn't. He just held his notebook tighter and stared at the sky. 3 weeks later, Oliver came to Willa with his notebook. "I finished it," he said. "Finished what?" "The questions, all the things I wanted to know about Alex." He'd filled every page. Questions about his childhood, his fears, his favorite foods, his dreams. Most of them answered. Some left blank. On the last page, Oliver had written one final question. Was it worth it, knowing him for 3 months instead of not knowing him at all? And underneath, in his careful handwriting, yes. 4 years later, Oliver and Sophia were 10 years old. They'd grown, changed, moved forward the way children do. They rarely talked about Alexander anymore, not because they'd forgotten, but because the pain had dulled into something quieter, something that lived alongside them instead of consuming them. One night in June, Willa found Sophia sitting on the floor of her room surrounded by photos. "What are you doing?" Willa asked. "School project. We have to write about someone who influenced us." "Who are you writing about?" "Alex." Willa sat down beside her. "What are you going to say?" "That he was my dad, that he left and then came back, that he died when I was 6. "That's all?" "No," Sophia said, picking up a photo. Alexander at the park, pushing her on the swings. "I'm going to say that he taught me something important." "What's that?" "That it's never too late to tell the truth, that it's never too late to try, that even if you mess up really bad, you can still fix some of it." Willa's eyes burned. "He'd be proud of you." "Do you think he can see us wherever he is?" "I don't know." "I think he can. I think he's watching, and I think he's happy we're okay." "We are okay, aren't we?" "Yeah," Sophia smiled. "We're good." In another room, Oliver sat at his desk, working on the same assignment. His paper was different. "The person who influenced me most is my father, Alexander Dawson. I only knew him for 3 months, but those 3 months changed my life.
Not because he gave me money, not because he was successful, not because he was perfect. Because he showed me that adults make mistakes too, that sometimes people are scared and that makes them do stupid things, that love isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up and trying. My father died when I was 6. I don't remember everything about him, but I remember the important parts. I remember that he came back. I remember that he told the truth. I remember that he loved us. And sometimes, that's enough.
He set down his pencil. On his desk, next to his computer, was a photo. Alexander, Sophia, Oliver, and Willa, all 4 of them together. Taken on Valentine's Day, a month before Alexander died. They were at Willa's apartment, eating heart-shaped cookies Sophia had made, playing cards. In the photo, they were laughing. A family. Temporary, fragile, imperfect, but real. And that was the miracle. Not that Alexander survived, not that he was cured, not that they got a happy ending. The miracle was that they got 3 months. 3 months of truth. 3 months of presence. 3 months of learning how to love each other in the time they had. And when the time ran out, when Alexander was gone and they had to keep living, they carried him with them. Not as money in a bank account, not as a name on a birth certificate, but as a lesson learned. It's never too late to try. Love matters, even when it's temporary. Showing up counts. And sometimes, when Oliver closed his eyes, he could still hear Alexander's voice. Good enough is good. And he believed it. 11 more years passed. Oliver stood at the entrance to the Second Chances Foundation, the organization his father had funded before he died. He was 21 years old now, the same age Alexander had been when he'd made his first million. But Oliver wasn't thinking about money. He was thinking about legacy. Inside, children from foster care were getting tutoring, therapy, support. Everything Alexander never had. A woman approached. "Are you Alexander's son?" "Yes." "He changed my life," she said. "I was in foster care, got a scholarship from his foundation, went to college. Now I work here, helping other kids like me." He'd be glad to know that. "Did you know him well?" "No, just 3 months." "That must have been hard." It was, but it was enough. The woman smiled and walked away. Oliver stood there, looking at the building, at the children inside, at the legacy his father had left. Not a legacy of perfection, a legacy of truth. And somewhere, in memory or in whatever comes after, he hoped Alexander knew. You did it, Dad. You showed up. And it mattered. This is where the story ends. Not with a miracle cure, not with a happy reunion, but with life continuing. With children growing up. With legacy measured in lessons, not money. I want to ask you one final question. Do you think the truth came too late or exactly when it needed to?
Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, subscribe, share it, tell someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't the ones that end happily. They're the ones that end honestly. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story reminded you of someone you've been meaning to call, to visit, to forgive, to try with, maybe that's not a coincidence. Alexander waited until he was dying to show up. You don't have to.